I'm going to be talking about The Inner Game of Tennis, a book that is fairly popular in the Melee community, and one that I think every player should have on their bookshelf. The book talks about cultivating a mental state that is required for delivering peak performance in sports, work, and life. While I believe this Zen-type thinking can work in your job and in life, we're going to focus on the sports portion of this, or in our terms, the Melee portion. In the book, author Tim Gallwey describes the competitive mindset as two selves talking to each other. One is telling the other what to do, and the other is simply trying to do it. Self one is the conscious mind, the voice of judgment and ego, known as the teller, while self two is the subconscious mind that contains all the technical and practical experience of the game, known as the doer. For a struggling player, the teller is often at odds with the doer and makes an effort to try and correct the doer's mistakes. However, in doing so, the teller then distracts the doer from doing their job. The example I like to think of is the coach versus the player. If a coach is constantly yelling at the player and telling him everything he's doing wrong, then how is the player supposed to play while being so distracted by outside judgment?
You suck! How could you miss that edge guard? Why do you always miss the easy ones? You should have practiced more. You're not good enough to beat him.
Who threw this at me?
I did. Boo!
Instead of that, it would be better if the coach was able to just tell the player about the other team's weaknesses and strengths, to then formulate a plan to outplay your opponent and win the game. This is an important fact to note, because Self One has all the outside influence of the world, all the judgment, and all the ego. Because of this, the teller ends up being overwhelmed, and when there is too much noise, things can get complicated for the doer. The teller relays all this worry to the doer, which ends up causing the doer to not perform well. In a game like Melee, all of our decisions and reactions happen at lightning-fast speed. So when the teller, with all its worries, distracts the doer from their game, the doer can hardly keep up with the game and ends up failing. So, the solution is simple. We have to quiet Self One. But how do we do that?
Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him!
One thing is that you have to let go of your ego and let go of all the preconceived notions you have about yourself and your opponent and just let the game speak for itself. You need to be able to come into a match with a quiet and open mind. The next thing you need to do is label everything as a fact in the most specific and unattached way. Imagine instead of saying, "Wow, I missed another stomp knee. That was bad." You simply note that you missed the stomp knee and add no emotion or anything else to it. Note what has happened and move on. I once saw a player SD after being F-smashed by a Marth. They got so mad and so focused on how they shouldn't have died that the next two stocks, their last two stocks, were taken because their judgment on what just took place was so overwhelming. This might be somewhat of a shock, but the same also goes for looking at things in a positive light. Instead of being happy that Puff missed their rest, just note it and move on. Even being excited about playing well can turn your good game into a bad one, because then you let Self One dictate how the match is going, and that distracts Self Two from finishing the game. You've probably seen a competitive match where it looks like one player is doing way better than the other, and yet they still lose. You might have also heard the phrase, "that was their game to lose." That's because they couldn't bring themselves to finish the match, and ended up defeating themselves. The reason why you would want to keep Self One only focused on the facts is because Self Two can only accept certain types of information. It's Self One's job to understand complex ideas and try to find solutions for elaborate problems. That way Self Two can worry about the execution and everything else. Even the way Self Two learns is different from Self One. Self Two learns by watching and playing the game, correcting itself as it goes along. Imagine that you're a baby trying to walk and talk. The baby has no concept of how it should be performing and can't make a judgment based on their performance. The baby can only take things in as fact and then continue to try and walk and talk. In this state, the baby is not affected by Self-1. Here's a clip of author Tim Galloway giving a lesson on the inner game of tennis to an interviewer.
Here's a hole. Instruction is, don't try to hit it.
Oh.
The next instruction is, what I do want you to do, Eileen, is without looking where your ball goes, tell me where it goes in relation to the ball. 3 inches left, 3 inches right,
Okay.
right on, whatever it is. Just feel where it goes. Okay, where did it go?
It went far beyond. About
No, I just
6.
want to know right or left.
Well, it went, let's see, it went to the outside of the ball for the
Outside of the
camera.
ball. How many inches?
2?
2 inches. That's about right. Maybe 2.5, 3 inches.
All
Okay.
right. Try one more. So
Again.
that's the idea, to be able to feel every stroke?
Just keep going. Just know where this one goes. I don't care where it goes, but know where it goes.
To the outside of the ball, about 2 inches or 2.5 inches again.
Okay? About the same. Now, how can you tell it goes there?
I don't know.
Just see how you can tell.
I guess from the way it took off. Again, the outside about 3 inches? 2 inches?
No, it hit the outside of the ball.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh, you mean it's a quick improvement here,
quick
huh?
improvement.
All right, one more.
Okay, now don't try to repeat it. Don't try to hit the ball. Just know exactly where it goes.
It went to outside.
No, it went dead center, right in the middle of the ball.
Isn't that all right?
In a world where Self-1 doesn't exist, Self-2 is able to achieve great play and mastery of the game because input and correction is all that Self-2 knows. But even so, Self-2 still needs Self-1 for the hard problems in play, the problems that take elaborate thinking to find a solution. Therefore, unity is needed between Self-1 and Self-2 to be able to play better and be better. This is where I think Melee players need to improve. I meet players all the time that have a hard time trying to get Self-1 to be quiet, and they usually say the phrase, "I need to have a better mentality."
I heard that.
I feel like that phrase is too vague, and from my experience, it mostly means to just not be so negative, which is a good start. And I hope that this video gives them a good path to go on for that better mentality. I also recommend reading the book. The book is great at explaining this idea more in depth, and has really good anecdotes as well. I also want to link this video from Core Gaming, where this idea is also expressed as systems of the brain that are based on scientific literature. But let's not have the discussion end there. Please leave a comment with what you think about what I've discussed in this video. I'm interested to see what everyone thinks. Also, please leave a like if you like the video. Thanks for watching.